So I grew up in Patchogue, New York, and for me, it was the greatest place to grow up. We had this bay that looked similar to what you're seeing right now in front of your screen, and I was there all the time. I was there swimming at the beach, swimming in the bay, having different seafoods and foods at the pool, which was down the street, and it was just such a great place to grow up for me. And then when you fast forward for me to high school, I was in my element. And although where I grew up in Patchogue, there was so many kids in my block, I was able to build my personality through playing with all these different kids. It was predominantly white, but I made such great connections and friendships. So when I was in high school, I brought all that with me. So I was the class secretary. I was the only female football player to play on a team with all the boys, and I was a linebacker. So you can imagine that I was very passionate about that. I also played other sports, and I just felt like I was in my element in so many different ways. I would give speeches and talk. It was such a great place for me to learn. Then I go to college, and you learn all this great stuff in college, and you land your first corporate job. And for me, my first corporate job was in human resources, and I loved it. I love that I can take different projects and figure out how I can help different people on different things to help them build a better workforce, feel like they belong, have different conversations. And then I started noticing as well that out of a department of 50, I was one of four Black people in the department. So you can imagine how comfortable I may have been. And in going through this experience as well, what was helpful for me was that I was learning all of these different skill sets, but I was also evaluating what was going on around the company so that I can just bring my own perception to different things. But as time went on, I started to get really, really, really sad and depressed. And what happened for me was I grew up finding and trying to figure out my identity for so long that I started finding out I was molding myself to fit in where everyone else wanted me to fit in. And so, although I felt in my element in high school, what people didn't know about me was I would go home and I would be so sad. I would just go in my bedroom and I would cry. And when I went to college, what people didn't know about me was I got so anxious, even though it looked like I was super comfortable in front of a room. I was incredibly anxious that people wouldn't like me or wouldn't like what I had to say. And so with all of this came so much scared, like these scared feelings of depression. And I remember when I had gone on a work assignment to Florida, my first company that I was working at out of graduate school, I had met this woman because I am lesbian. I met this woman there, and I did not envision that she would be my wife today. But after some time of doing long distance, we finally made the decision, let's actually just move in together. So I knew I had to stay in Connecticut for my job, and she had to stay in Florida for hers. But we figured out a way to then come together in Connecticut. Why she moved from Florida to Connecticut to this day, I will never know. But now we are in Seattle, Washington. But as we were starting to come together and live together in this space, she started noticing that I was just angry at the world. I was lashing out at her. I wasn't giving her time to joke around with me. I was taking things way too seriously. And she comes to me and she gives me an ultimatum, which I never had expected. And we were engaged at this time. And she said, I really think you need to talk to somebody because I cannot do this anymore. And if you don't go and talk to somebody, I don't know that I can be here any longer. And it wasn't for her to say, to force me to do it. It was just to say, I know that you are in there, but you need to handle your stuff. So that was a big awakening for me. I tried therapy, wasn't a big fan of it. I was kept rehashing the past, and I found a life coach because I decided I want to be able to find someone who's going to help me focus on what's happening right now and get me back to who I want to become. And when I met with this life coach, this is how I felt. I felt like I was a little caterpillar where I was like starting off in my world and trying to be this great person. And I started finding myself a little bit. And then I was so shut out from the world and angry and mad in my teens and into my 20s. Then I started blooming a little bit and finding that, I can do these types of things, which in my 20s was my first job. But where I really flourished, if I have to be really honest, is when I got to this point in my life. And the way I got there is this life coach had asked me three powerful life changing questions that I want to give to you today, to share with you that we all have our stories that we're going to be telling ourselves, but I want to be able to tell you how you can reinvent that. And the reason why this is so important too is because when you think of this in a cycle, your thoughts create your feelings fuel your actions, and your actions are going to actually determine your results. So if I'm thinking that I need to mold myself to be what everyone else wants me to be because I don't want to be disliked, my feelings are going to be of anxiety, of anger, of depression. My actions are going to be doing things that I don't enjoy so I can be liked by other people. And the result is going to just continue the cycle of these negative thoughts about myself because I've lost myself. So my ability to problem solve and have mental energy and have rational thinking, I also developed this health problem as a result. And this was the health problem. I have Bell's palsy, and this happened. I still have it today. It's partial facial paralysis. But when I first got diagnosed with it, it was the scariest thing because I thought I was having a stroke. You wake up, your face is tight, you can barely speak, you're kind of drooling on yourself, you have no idea what's going on. And I had to wear an eye patch at night to go to sleep because my eye wasn't closing fully. And the reason why I got this was for a couple of reasons. One, I got it from stress, or three reasons you can get it is you can get it from stress, you can get it from diabetes, or you can get it from shingles. That's the research that they have about Bell's palsy right now. I didn't have diabetes and I did not have shingles, and I still don't, but I had stress, and it was high levels of stress, not only just from my work and people in my life. It was my story, the thoughts that I was creating, the feelings that I was creating, then not doing any action or doing action that wasn't right for me, combined with the stress of work, combined with other things, led me to this point. So what I mentioned, I'm going to share those three powerful questions with you, the impact that this can have on you and the impact it could have just overall, and then how you get started, because this is so crucially important to me. So the first question is, where are you now? Think about that story, right? So these are the questions that I was prompted with when I had this conversation. And it really started to get me thinking and also get me a little nervous at the same time. But what is the story that you've been holding on to? And how long have you been holding on to this story? Why do you think you're holding on to this story still? And how is this story impacting you today? So for an example, I have a friend who hated the fact of being in a relationship. Her parents got divorced when she was young. And so the story that she was telling herself is, I am not going to be in any successful relationship because my parents got divorced and then also her sibling got divorced. And she held on to that story from the age of, I think it was like 8 years old, all the way up until she was 26 or 27. And she felt, I'm holding on to this story because I've seen my parents and it was traumatic for me. And I've seen my only sibling not working out in their marriage. There's no way I'm going to be able to get in a relationship and be successful or even get married. And the story was impacting her so much in her relationships that she was kind of starting to become that type of person that would ask a ton of questions in a relationship or be so nervous and anxious that they were going to leave her, and was not present in being the person that she wanted to be in the relationship. So we actually went through some of these exercises, and as I go through, I try to relate it back to the story, given the time frame that we have. And when you think about, okay, where are you now? Well, where do you actually want to be? Is it that your story is around relationships or money or your job or your health? Well, where do you want to be with those things? This is actually what was the biggest game changer for me. This was the second question here was phenomenal because what we did was something called dream visioning. I had never thought that there could be any difference in terms of my story and how I can live the life I want. And so, if you want to live the life that you want, what would it look like? Take time for yourself to close your eyes and just look at these questions, or even if you can record them on your phone and have them play out as you close your eyes so that you can listen to these questions and you can reflect. So how do you want to feel? For me, I wanted to feel like I can make decisions that feel right to me, and I can feel empowered to say, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm going to move on. Or how would your new story look? My new story would look like I'm actually a pretty good badass person. So I don't need to mold into what people want. I'm going to be me. So one example of that is I always worked in a corporate setting where I'd always straighten my hair. I'd have a fancy suit. I'd spend way too much money on clothing than I did. And now I'm at a point where I have these fun, awesome t-shirts that I'll wear with a blazer. I'll have my hair braided. Sometimes I wear a beanie. I'm just presenting as my authentic self because I want to be able to be my best self for anyone that I'm encountering with. And then thinking about, what do you actually value? If you look up on Google, there's a value list. And I value humor, I value flexibility, I value family. So any decisions that I'm making around the person I want to be, if somebody comes to me, my wife, for example, and says, "Hey, do you want to go watch this movie?" If I'm not into it, I'm not going to watch that movie. Or if somebody's asking me to take on a job that's going to take so much time away from my family and that doesn't align with my message, I'm not going to do it. uh, and then that's where I'm leveraging my values to make decisions in my life. So everyone has a story, whether it's, how you grew up or your parents and how long you've been holding on to the story. But when you dream and you vision and you do this dream visioning exercise, it gives you so much hope that you can actually achieve this. But we have to be realistic with ourselves, because as much as we want this dream visioning, we have to understand what can get in the way in as we go through this journey. And so what actually can get in the way is this cycle again. Your thoughts can get in the way. So you may feel really empowered to change your body, for example, or to go into a relationship. But as you're going through the process, what's really going to be helpful is that you are taking inventory and documenting down, okay, well, I'm gonna have these thoughts that this guy's not gonna be good enough for me, or this girl's not gonna be good enough for me when I go on a date. How can I reframe that? Okay, I know I'm worthy and the right person's going to want me. And take inventory on the feelings that you're feeling, the actions you're taking, and the results that are coming out of that. So this does take work, but it is so worth it, because I'm in this place of my life now where I'm so freeing that I can say yes to things, I'll say no to things, I'll say maybe to things, but I check on my thoughts around it and my feelings around it to gauge it. And it's one or two steps, not a damn mountain. So as you start thinking about these things that you want to change and do, think of one or two actions that you can take. And what I always say is, have an accountability partner to get you through this. So this is a little template that I worked in when I was doing this work. And I still do this to this day to check in with myself. But let's say you want to focus on, you just want to start. And the area of your life you want to focus on, let's say it is relationships with my friend here. Where she wanted to be, she really wrote out a couple of details. I want to be present in a relationship where I'm not questioning everything. And I have a partner that is interested in understanding me, but I also want to start learning more about marriage or relationships and how you can be effective in it. So, two actions that she could take is, one, she can write down that she wants to learn more about being in an effective relationship. And two, she can then schedule a date and practice those during her date. And so, as we were going through this together over the course of probably like a year or two, she's now actually engaged, and and she's going to be married next year. So I'm telling you that it's when you're thinking about these things and how you want to reinvent your story for yourself, you can't just think about it. You have to document it down and take action every single day. And it doesn't have to be huge. Like I said, it's not a damn mountain. It's just one or two actions each day. One action could even be how your thoughts around your feelings on a date. I had a really negative thought and I was able to reframe this for myself. Here's how I was able to do that. But taking that inventory, and you can even do it on a weekly basis. Maybe you don't have time every day, but you do it on a weekly basis. But taking this inventory for yourself is really what shifted everything for me. And then schedule those puppies, people. Don't just say you're going to do these actions without actually putting down on your phone that you're going to do it. So let's say you have an action, right? I took my phone, I went directly into my Google Calendar, and I put in my Google Calendar the things that I wanted to accomplish on whatever day worked best. I then also, my accountability partner at the time was my wife. I then shared that calendar invite with her so that she, which I think she liked a little too much, she was able to put me and say, hey, you said you were going to do this thing today where you were going to set boundaries with your father. Did you call him? And I'm like, well, no. And she'd say, well, how about you call him in a few minutes? Having that partner is so helpful, but you're not going to really accomplish much if you don't have it scheduled, because with everything going on in our lives, everything that's happening in the world, we need time to structure these things out. And so I shared 3 powerful questions with you today. The impact that it could have on your health, your relationships, your emotions, just to name a few. And that you really don't have to start in the significantly huge area. Pick one or two. And when you feel right, when it feels right and you feel comfortable in those areas, then move on to the next thing. But always follow that partner and have that accountability partner with you. What I'll say is why this was so powerful for me is I was consistent with it. And I had my life coach as my actual accountability partner. She was not afraid to yell at me. Not really yell, but like say like, let's get your shit together. And because of that, I'm now able to do things that I want. So I'm now a speaker. I also am a diversity, equity, and inclusion program manager for a tech company. These are 2 huge dreams I really wanted, and I thought I would never achieve, because if I kept molding myself into what other people wanted, I would have been in the same role and the same career that my father wanted for me. I would be in the relationship that my friends wanted for me. I would not be where I am in this free space and now teaching this to you all. So, with that, this is my contact information. I'm Geronda Wollack Spiller, speaker and coach, generally for the LGBTQ plus community, but I do help everyone. And so here's my phone number, my website, my email. If you ever want to talk through anything or think about coaching, please contact me. Also, for any speaking opportunities, I am available, and we can talk about availability as well. But I will end this by saying go out there and be the badass that you know that you can be, and really change your story. Because if I can do it after almost 20 years, anybody can honestly do it. So thank you, everybody.